Hello and welcome to another session of Karen's Colours. I'm Dr. Karen and these are my colour conversations. Well, it's that time again where we delve into the realm of potential. Yes, time for more monthly colour readings. I hope you've been enjoying the ones that I have been presenting so far, and I'd be very curious to find out just how it is that you managed with the colour changes that you may have chosen for yourself. I, this month, had the colours blue and yellow, and I certainly had some surprises, which is what those colours tend to suggest. The most surprising thing, of course, was that even though I am a lucid dreamer and still dreamt throughout the entire month, I couldn't remember any of them, which is really quite interesting because yellow is a colour of remembering things. So obviously it was an issue that I needed to deal with. But before we get started today, I'd really like to welcome those of you who are new subscribers to this channel. It's always pleasant to find that there are people who are starting to find an interest in the sorts of things that I talk about. Maybe it's not so much these monthly readings, maybe it's more to do with the films that I analyse, but whatever it is, if I can explore with you the world of colour as I see it, then maybe you too will find an interest in something that you didn't know that you were interested in. For those of you who are regular viewers, thank you from the bottom of my heart for attending. And really, I think it's time that you might like to make some comments. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know what's happening to you. Let me know how these readings resonate for you. And that way I can be guided into giving more informed opinions of the colours as they turn out. If you're new here, then of course you are also very, very welcome. And I hope you find something here that is of benefit to you. All right, well, this month I've decided to take the oracle called The Treasures of Tikashi. Now, I don't have a box for these anymore. These have been with me for almost as long as my tarot cards and much, much longer than my colour cards. So the box is long gone, but it has some very wonderful messages for people. And I hope that the message that comes out for you resonates with what you are experiencing in your life in the here and now. All right then, well, let's get started. Let's now get a treasure from Tikashi Oracle, a card for people born in the month of April to tidy up the colour reading for October 2025. And we'll pop that under there and look at it at the end of the reading. Very well now, what I need is a colour reading for people born in the month of April, looking at how their October 2025 is likely to develop. All right. You bring into the month white on grey. Throughout the majority of the month, we have cyan on brown. And towards the end of the month, it's red on yellow. And the underlying energy is black on black. All right. Interesting. All right, we only have one colour that's repeated here, and that is black. And it appears both top and bottom, so therefore it's the action as well as the need or drive from underneath in the underlying energy. Now, a single colour, top and bottom, always means there is something very specific about what that represents. And it represents a fair degree of rigidity in the way in which things can happen. And that's basically because the need and the action are the same thing. and they just simply feed into one another in an ever increasing spiral or decreasing spiral, whichever way it goes, until such time as a breakout of some other color occurs. Black is an interesting one because it happens to contain all of the colors. It contains them in a dreadful mix of so much obliteration of what the hues really stand for that you really can't tell what is what. But nevertheless, it impinges upon everything that's going to happen to you during the month of October. So let's examine this in more detail. Black as a drive inside basically refers to the need to remove yourself, shall we say, from society. It's the need for peace and quiet and just separating away from those things that have impinged upon you in everyday life. You want time out. Now, often that is also a search internally for something that has to do with creating a connection with your own inner dialogue, with your inner self, your spiritual self, if you like. And that need is so overpowering that in the real world, what has happened here is that you have actually found yourself withdrawn. Now, often black on black is associated with forms of depression. So there is this feeling, and also the way in which you present yourself to people, that you are not connecting with those around you. You're not connecting with people any more than you're connecting with situations. So there is a real disconnect that happens here, a removal of the self from everyday life in some way. And generally, it's a mental thing that's happening here. Now, in the past, what you've had here is white on grey. Now, grey is what happens when we mix black and white. And it gives us a middle road. As a need or a drive, the underlying colour, it refers to this continual desire to find something that leads you out of a state of confusion, out of a state of uncertainty. There is a need to find something that gives you an alternative. In the real world, unfortunately, as you're coming into the month, everything that impinges upon you is one shock after another. It's shock upon shock upon shock upon shock. It's like there's a massive enlightenment that's happening. And in fact, it's the very opposite of what the underlying energy is all about. So here we have also a situation where all colours are involved, only this time they're involved in a different mixture, a mixture that completely obliterates all of the hues and leaves us with an empty space. Here, the hues are obliterated, but they are left with a space that is filled with everything. Here, it's filled with nothing. As you move further into the month, we find that a hue begins to, or a series of hues begin to emerge. Cyan on brown. Now, brown as an internal driver is always about the need for some sort of wish fulfillment or some sort of drive and an ambition that needs to be consolidated in some way. You need to discover what it is that you want. You need to discover how to go about obtaining that, and then you need to discover the skills that are necessary in order to facilitate that obtaining of whatever it is that you want. Now, in the real world, of course, there is an entirely different view here because we have cyan. Cyan is all about bliss. It's all about perfection. It's all about being comfortable and content. But it's also all about stagnation and quiet and boredom. So regardless of what it is that you are inspired to do by the brown internally and are striving towards discovering more about, in the real world, there is stalemate. You're not going anywhere with it. You cannot move at all. And so the need to get on with a job of doing just something, anything that will make you feel content in the real world isn't actually creating that contentment. Now, as you move further into the month, that begins to change again. all of the other color is removed from the brown, and what we have left with is yellow. Yellow internally is a need for happiness. And why do we need happiness? Because we're often sad, or in this particular case, yellow internally refers to being fearful. There is a sense of something is not quite right. It stems from back here where you're looking for some sort of clarity, some sort of middle road that will lead you away from the darkness and the overwhelming glare of light. And what you have left with after having gone through a transition period of attempting to find some sort of ambition or goal that you want to achieve and doing it unsuccessfully, you're now in a situation where there is a fear that you need to escape from. And in the real world, what happens is that you're going to find yourself using a bit of explosive energy. Now, cyan and red are opposites on the color wheel. And as such, they become a real problem to deal with because you have to manage to overcome this stagnation, not just by using energy or getting energy working for you, but you have to be careful about that energy too. Red says stop, and it says stop for a jolly good reason, and that is that it is a danger sign. There is a potential here for you to be impulsive and to do things that are potentially damaging to you on a very personal level. You could even spill blood. So it's a very important thing to remember as you're traveling through the month of October, that if you find yourself very fearful and you confront that in any very rapid or non-thinking way, then you can cause damage. What this actually says is think, that is, internally, do some mental work, and then act. If it was the other way around, you would be feeling as though you need to act, but in the real world, thinking very carefully about or planning very carefully about how you would go about doing it. This is asking you to do it in a way that prevents you from damaging yourself, but there is always a likelihood that you might just go ahead and do so. So how does this underlying energy impinge upon all of this stuff? Well, if we take white and place it over black, so white is the action, black is the underlying drive. What we have here is a need to remove yourself from everyday woes, but in the real world, they're constantly coming at you. You are overwhelmed with information, overwhelmed with experience, and they are so overwhelming that it causes you to want to withdraw even further. That black and white become the grey that is the driver that brings you into the month to start off with. So if we then put black over grey, what we have here is already a mixture of the black and white, that is, being overwhelmed, being uncertain, being confused, needing to find some sort of safe middle way. But in the real world, what you're doing about it is simply stepping back, moving out of the scene, and waiting until such time as there is a better opportunity to use the information that you have. Because black is about persons who know everything if they can only access that information. So you really do need to get inside yourself to discover just where all of this information that will lead you down a path of safety will come from and what it actually means for you. Now, in the middle of the month, we have cyan over black. Now, the black internally, once again, the need to remove yourself. The cyan here is stagnation. So we find that the more you remove yourself, the more quiet life becomes around you. And while it actually indicates stagnation, it also indicates safety. So in effect, you are saved from any potential danger in the middle of the month because you're already thinking things through very, very thoroughly. Black internally always has to do with a lot of deep thought And in the real world, there is this appearance of everything is under control, everything is perfectly okay. On the other hand, you can have black over brown. Now, the brown here is involved in creating goals, developing the need for specific sorts of skills and attributes that will enable you to accomplish those goals. But in the real world, there is an awful lot of information that you don't know and you don't yet have access to. And that is holding back your ability to create what you want out of those opportunities that arise when you create a particular goal. The minute we put an ambition into the real world, we begin to create opportunities around it. This is an opportunity that is being held in check. You're being extremely quiet about what it is that you want to achieve. So chances are you're not actually putting it out into the world. On the other hand, we then come into the future where here we have black over yellow. Black over yellow is an interesting combination. In nature, that always says, watch out, I am dangerous, I'm venomous. You wouldn't want to cross me. In order to escape fear, in order to find some sort of joy, there is here a need or an action of removing yourself. So you're sitting mum on your ideas, you're sitting mum on your inspirations, because yellow often has to do with inspiration too. Just like the white did here, yellow also is inspiration, because it means having the ability to remember the things that you have learnt before and putting them together in new and novel ways. And that is aided by the black in the external world, because you're taking the time out physically to allow yourself to rethink things. On the other hand, you can have red over black. Now, red and black together, regardless of which way round they are, is always associated with some sort of sexuality conflict. Now, that's got nothing to do with actual gender. It's got nothing to do with biological sex. This sexuality is to do with how you see yourself as a human being and how you present yourself to others. So here we have red in the real world means domination. Black in the internal world is a withdrawal from people. So you're not allowing people to see who you are internally, because externally you come across as someone who is strong, who is belligerent, who is aggressive potentially, who is a bit of a daredevil. But internally, this is all driven by this need to just simply push things away. You don't want to get involved. So by acting out in the way that red creates that ability to do so, gives you the energy to do so, actually helps to keep you safe. Ultimately, black on black is the ultimate in safety, because if you're totally withdrawn, if you're totally away from any interaction with people or things, experiences, then of course you're totally safe. Nothing can get to you if you are not engaged. Red, on the other hand, is ultimate engagement with you in charge, and yellow is an ultimate engagement with you doing all of the thinking and planning that's necessary to make changes. So either way, the red and yellow together, combined with the black on black, makes for a rather volatile end towards your month. Let's have a look at what's missing to see if we get any more ideas here. Well, we have black and we have white. You have red, you have yellow. There's no green, there's no blue. You do have brown. There's no orange as such, even though orange is very much hidden in this combination here. You have grey, there's no purple, there is no pink, but you do have cyan. So here, with these 7 colours, you have quite a variety of different skills that will enable you to move your way through the month of October in order to get to a state where you are thinking before you act, because you spent a lot of time retreating away from everything that's happened beforehand, and will enable you now to have contacted inside your psychic or internal child, whatever, your internal self, and you now have some sort of very well-formed idea as to how to do whatever it is that you are challenged with here in a manner that keeps you safe. On the other hand, these colours are the ones that you are currently not using. And these are the ones that will make a difference to how you will traverse that month. Green is about taking opportunities. It's finding freedom. It's being able to change your values about things. Blue is about getting organised. It's about understanding things. It's about doing what has to be done, because if you don't do it, nobody else will. Orange is about confidence. It's about being able to survive issues as they arise. And purple is the ability to create change dramatically by tearing things down and then rebuilding them in some way that makes life easier and better for you. And finally, pink is all about loving and being loved. It's about being vulnerable and accepting help from others. People in the black phase of life never accept help from others. They are self-sufficient because they already are in touch with every bit of knowledge that they need for everything. So the idea is that you now look at those 5 colours and choose which is the most appealing and which is the least appealing, and then add those in some way to your life as you travel through the month of October. And when you do so, instead of having 7 sets of skills, you now increase that to 9. And with 9 sets of skills, whatever colours you've chosen from here will lead you through in such a way that you are tapping into information here from the black and also from the white here, but specifically from the black because it appears twice. Tapping into that information and drawing out of it whatever part of these colours that you find are going to be useful to you to deal with the issues here. Because ultimately red and yellow, when they are blended together, create orange. Orange is a crisis, and a crisis can be dealt with confidence. So let's have a look at what Tikashi has to offer us. Vulnerability. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. Do not fear it. To truly fear your aliveness, be aware of yourself and yet allow your heart to be open. Be vulnerable to the joys of life. Let them in. You do need to feel vulnerable before you will allow support. Do not judge your feelings. Well, that's what this is all about. It's also the combination we get when we take the white from here and the red from here. Perhaps that might be a hint. Well, that was certainly an interesting reading. I hope it resonates with you throughout the month. And if it doesn't, come back in a week or so and see what it has to say then. Because quite often we don't recognize all these general readings for ourselves immediately. It's only once we've gone through a few stages that we start to realize that, maybe that was what it was all about. Anyway, until next time, may the colours of your life bring you joy and happiness and all the things that you desire. Until I see you again, bye.